Hello, Walking the Ropes fans. I am Blake, and welcome to the next episode of Walking the Ropes Wrestling Review for AEW All Out from Chicago, Illinois. In today's show, we have arguably the best pro wrestling pay-per-view ever. And that's all I'm going to say. But before that, make sure to check out the Walking the Ropes link tree for all things Walking the Ropes. To open the show, we had the TNT Championship match, Miro defending against Eddie Kingston. And to start out, Miro ran right at Eddie and he reversed it, and then they just struggled for control until Miro rolled out of the ring. Eddie then chops on Miro and he hits an exploder and takes it again back to the outside. Miro tosses Eddie into the barricade outside, and Eddie then fights back in with a big boot. Eddie goes for a dive, but Miro catches him and slams him to the mat on the outside. Miro then runs at Eddie and into the post, he runs Eddie into the post and takes control. Eddie then tries to fight back, but Miro locks in a headlock, and eventually Eddie is able to fight back. He knocks down Miro. He goes for a dive on the outside, but Miro stops him, and they bring it back in the ring, and Eddie hits a backdrop. They exchange some shots again, and Eddie hits two body slams for a near fall. Miro rolls out, and Eddie hits a dive to the outside, and then back in the ring hits a fisherman's suplex. And then Eddie holds onto the turnbuckle as Miro suplexes him and takes off the turnbuckle as he's getting suplexed. Miro then locks in game over, and Eddie fights to the ropes, and I honestly thought that was going to be the finish there. Eddie then hits a spinning back fist for a near fall, and then he follows it up with he was going to go for a pile driver, then he decides to, he's going to smash Miro into the turnbuckle, but the ref stops him, he gets in the way, and then Miro uses this to low blow Eddie, hit the big kick, and get the win. Miro defeats Eddie Kingston to retain the TNT Championship. For my Malteser scale, I gave this a 3.75 out of 5. And this feels like it's setting up for something else between Eddie and Miro. I feel like there's going to be like a no DQ match or something, because Eddie's going to be pissed off that Miro cheated. And I really think Eddie might be the guy that takes it off of Miro. Well, we shall see. The next match is a singles match between Jon Moxley and Satoshi Kojima, and this was just a fantastic match. Satoshi extended his hand right away, and Moxley slapped it away, and they exchanged blows. Kojima then knocks Moxley down and then out of the ring, and Kojima hits a springboard dive, and Moxley answers with a dive of his own. Moxley then takes control and chops Kojima in the corner, and Kojima comes back and hits an elbow drop from the top rope, and Moxley stops him and goes for a brainbuster, but is stopped, and they go to the top and fight for control until Kojima hits a superplex. And then on the apron, Kojima also follows it up with a DDT, and Moxley then is able to reverse Kojima and lock in an arm breaker. But Kojima hits a brainbuster and gets a near fall, and Moxley and Kojima just go back and forth for a little bit, and Moxley goes for the paradigm shift, but Kojima fights out and goes, they continue to just go back and forth for a bit. Then Moxley hits a lariat, and they lock up, he locks in the bulldog choke, and Kojima goes to the ropes, and Kojima fights back, but Moxley hits the paradigm shift twice, and he gets the win. Jon Moxley defeats Satoshi Kojima, and for my Malteser scale, I gave this a 3.5 out of 5. It was a solid match, absolutely. I'm really excited to see more from Moxley here, because he's clearly going on a series of matches here, and I say clearly because after the match, Minoru Suzuki makes his way to the ring. He gets in the ring, and they immediately start exchanging shots, and then eventually Minoru locks in a sleeper hold. He then hits a pile driver and stands tall. Then they confirm we will have a match at Homecoming, Jon Moxley's Homecoming, which is next week in Cincinnati, I believe they said. And it will be Minoru Suzuki versus Jon Moxley on AEW Dynamite. I can't believe it. We then get the AEW Women's World Championship match. Dr. Britt Baker with Rebel and Jamie Hayter versus Chris Statlander with Orange Cassidy. And then they immediately just exchange holds to start out, but neither really got any advantage. And then they go back and forth, and Statlander eventually goes up to the top, but Britt stops her and sends her outside. Britt beats on Chris inside the ring, and Chris comes back and smashes Britt in the corner, and then hits an inside hook Falcon Arrow for a near fall. Britt then gets a nice roll up for a near fall, but she follows it up with a big kick and then gets the glove from Rebel. Chris then goes for the Big Bang Theory, but Britt fights out and goes to the top rope, where Chris then hits a superplex. Chris goes to the top rope herself and goes for the Area 451, but Britt rolls out of the way and goes for lockjaw, but Chris fights out, hits a scissor kick for a near fall. And then outside of the ring, Chris goes for a pendulum moonsault, but Britt moves out of the way and hits a curb stomp from the stairs. And then back in the ring, Britt fights out of a submission, and she then answers with a Panama Sunrise and a curb stomp for a near fall. She then follows it up with the lockjaw for the win. Britt Baker defeats Chris Statlander to retain the AEW Women's World Championship match. AEW Women's World Championship, sorry. For my Malteser scale, I gave this a 4.25 out of 5. It was a fantastic match. And if at all you think I'm not doing these justice by what I'm describing, I understand that I'm just describing kind of move for move what's going on. I'm just trying to explain why how everything goes. So if you just feel compelled to go watch these matches, that's basically my goal here. I don't intend to have you guys thinking I'm doing I don't think I'm doing anything special by running through this list, but I like doing it, and I hope you guys, whoever does watch this, likes doing it as well. But yeah, this has been fantastic. It was a great first 3 matches to the pay-per-view, and we then followed it up with Andrade and Chavo talking about why Pac isn't there, and they basically put the blame on Chavo that he didn't really know Andrade didn't want that and whatever. And so we get confirmation that we're getting the match this Friday on Rampage. I'm very excited for that, but not as excited as I am for the AEW World Tag Team Championship Steel Cage match that is next between the Young Bucks defending against the Lucha Brothers. And they immediately exchange shots to start out. And they go back and forth with both teams mirroring each other with each move. And then the Lucha Brothers hit the Crusher double stomp. I don't really know how else to describe it. It's similar to what the Team 3D, the Dudley Boys, did with the head smash, but instead of a head smash, it's a double stomp kick. And then they take control from there, and they go to spear the Bucks through into the cage, but they move out of the way, and the Lucha Brothers go crashing into the cage. The Bucks then start to take control and double team the Lucha Brothers and use the cage to their advantage, trapping Penta into the apron and the cage. Matt then goes for a powerbomb, and Phoenix reverses it and sends him flying into the cage. And Phoenix takes on both the Bucks at the same time, and then Penta and Phoenix take control momentarily and get a near fall. The Lucha Brothers go for a double team, but the Bucks stop them and lock in a submission on Penta after Nick powerbombed Phoenix on the apron. The Bucks then hit a suspended senton splash and then hit the Meltzer driver for a near fall. They hit the Meltzer driver they hit it on Phoenix, but they drove Phoenix into Penta. So then they answered it with a BTE trigger, but Phoenix moves. He fights back, and Matt then just low blows the Lucha Brothers. The Bucks hit more bang for your buck, but and get a near fall, that's broken up by Penta, and then Matt and Nick tear at the masks of the Lucha Brothers. And the Young Bucks toss Phoenix into the cage, and Cutler then tosses a bag into the ring over the cage. Did it in one shot. I'm pretty impressed with him. I thought he was going to mess it up. Maybe that's why they've been practicing basketball so much. Matt then pulls out a tack-covered Jordan and aims for Phoenix, but Penta then slides in the way and basically asks to take it instead. And so Matt obliges and hits him with a super kick. Then Nick drives Penta into the shoe, and then he also kicks Penta's head into the foot further. The Bucks then hit the BTE trigger for a near fall, and then they line up the shoe for Phoenix, but he moves and takes on both the Bucks and uses the shoe as to his advantage, and he hits a muscle buster variant. I couldn't really catch what Excalibur called it, and he gets a near fall there. Nick and Phoenix then fight on top or on the cage wall, and then Matt and Penta hit package pile drivers face to face with their opponents. Kind of like, oh, you hurt my brother, I'll hurt your brother. And then Penta got upset with that, and he goes and hits a Canadian Destroyer off the top rope. And then they all kind of come up and exchange chops and super kicks until everyone just gets laid out. The Lucha Brothers hit a package pile driver stomp for a near fall that's broken up by Nick. And then Phoenix is instructed to go up to the top for to the cage and hit the stomp again, but Nick stops it. He's kicked off he goes up to the cage to try to fight Phoenix off, but he's kicked off the cage, and then Phoenix dives on everyone, and the Lucha Brothers hit the spike driver for the win. The Lucha Brothers defeat the Young Bucks to become the new AEW World Tag Team Champions. So freaking cool, and this was absolutely the best match AEW has ever put on, hands down. My Malteser scale, it broke here. It's a 7 out of 5. It's so amazing, just absolutely perfect. I couldn't have imagined this match being better. I thought their ladder match was insane. This just took the cake. We then got a recap of what has happened so far on All Out. Nice video package so they could clean up the ring from all the blood. We're 4 matches in, and like I said, this is easily the best pay-per-view AEW has produced. They could have ended it after these 4 matches, and I think that would have been still the best pay-per-view AEW has produced. And then we move on to the All Out Casino Battle Royale. And if you don't know how these work, they come out in suits. The first suit was clubs, and they come out in groups of 5. So it was Hikaru Shida, Sky Blue, Emi Sakura, the Bunny, and Abaddon. And this is really cool, but the way I run down these kinds of things is there's always a lot going on there, sometimes upwards of 10 people, 20 people in these sorts of matches. So I just run through who eliminated who, and who entered at what time. So we then, like I said, we had the first set of first suit was the clubs. It was Hikaru Shida, Sky Blue, Emi Sakura, the Bunny, and Abaddon, like I already said. We then have, during this, we have Abaddon eliminating Sky Blue, and she's immediately eliminated by the Bunny as well. So we're immediately down to 3 people, 3 people from the first suit. The second suit comes out, and it's the Diamonds. We have Anna Jay, Kiera Hogan, Kylan King, Diamante, and Nyla Rose. And during this set, we have Hikaru Shida eliminating Emi Sakura, and Nyla Rose eliminates Kiera Hogan, Kylan King, and Hikaru Shida. So we've lost 6 people out of the 10 that have entered so far. So we have 4 left so far. The third third suit comes in, and it's the Hearts. It's Thunder Rosa, Penelope Ford, Riho, Jamie Hayter, and Big Swole. And during this time, we have Jamie Hayter eliminating Riho. Big Swole eliminates Diamante, and Jamie Hayter also eliminates Big Swole. So we have 9 people eliminated out of the 15 so far. And the fourth suit is the Spades, obviously. And we get Ty Conti, Red Velvet, Layla Hirsch, Jade Cargill, and Rebel. And before we get to the Joker, because there's always the surprise Joker, we have the eliminations of Red Velvet eliminating Rebel, Anna Jay eliminates the Bunny, Penelope Ford eliminates Anna Jay, and then Jade Cargill eliminates Layla Hirsch. And then the Joker makes her debut, and it's Destination AEW. Ruby Soho has made her AEW debut. Formerly, obviously, Ruby Riott, but more better known and more well received on the indie scene for Shimmer and other promotions as well. So very excited to see her. She comes in, and then during the last few eliminations here, we have Jade Cargill eliminating Jamie Hayter and Red Velvet, and then Nyla Rose eliminates Jade Cargill. We're clearly going to start a feud there because they've been working together. We have Ty Conti eliminating Penelope Ford. Thunder Rosa eliminates Nyla Rose. And then finally, Ruby Soho eliminates Thunder Rosa to win. Ruby Soho wins the All Out Casino Battle Royale to become the new #1 contender for the AEW Women's World Championship. For my Malteser scale, I gave this a 4 out of 5. It was a very solid match, a great way to follow up that steel cage match. And then we move swiftly on to the final fight, potentially. Singles match between Chris Jericho and MJF. If Chris Jericho loses, he will never wrestle in AEW again. And we have MJF immediately taunting the crowd, and then they finally can lock up. They go back and forth and exchange drop kicks, but Jericho goes for the walls of Jericho, but MJF fights out, and they brawl into the crowd, and Jericho finds like the like queue line. It's like a rope sort of. It's like a big pole, and he drops it on MJF. I don't know how to describe it really. Jericho then kicks MJF and back it out of the ring, and they go. He goes for a baseball slide, but MJF pulls the apron and starts to beat on Jericho. MJF then hits a suplex for a 1 count, and he starts biting Jericho's hand. Jericho hits a suplex, and he starts to beat on MJF again, and he hits a backbreaker as well. MJF then stops Jericho's momentum and chops him and taunts the Nature Boy. MJF then hits the Heat Seeker onto the apron, and he uses this to try to get a count on count out win on Jericho. But he makes it in at 9. And then Jericho slides in and out of the ring to break the count, and MJF goes for a moonsault, but Jericho moves and he hits a powerbomb onto the apron, and then Jericho goes up to the top, but MJF hits a big knee while Jericho lands. Jericho eventually is able to go for the Lion Tamer once more, but MJF fights out, and Jericho hits the Lion Salt instead for a near fall. Jericho then smashes MJF in the corner and beats on him on the top rope and goes for a Hurricanrana, but MJF hits a Liger Bomb instead. And MJF sets up Jericho on the apron, and Jericho pushes him off and hits a Codebreaker for a near fall. We then get Wardlow making his way out, but Jake Hager makes the stop and keeps this a singles match. MJF then hits Jericho with Floyd the Bat and hits the Judas Effect. He does get the pin, but the ref, Aubrey Edwards, did not see Jericho put his foot on the ropes at 2. But the outside referee, I believe it was Bryce Remsford, he did notice it. The decision was overturned. The match gets restarted. Jericho rolls up MJF for a near fall. MJF locks in the Salt of the Earth. Jericho fights out. He locks in the Lion Tamer, and MJF taps out. Chris Jericho defeats MJF. We don't lose Chris Jericho. I'm so happy. My Malteser scale, I gave this a 5.75 out of 5. Man, the thing is just absolutely broken right now, but I don't care. AEW has put on probably the best show I have ever seen. And it's just not just getting started, but it's not done yet. We then get the singles match, 7 years in the making. Darby Allin versus CM Punk. and they immediately stand off and they lock up, and Darby locks in a hammer lock, and they fight over that, and Punk eventually fights out and slams Darby down, and he locks in a headlock of his own, and Darby fights out of that. Punk goes for the GTS really, really early on, but Darby fights out and just kind of goes to the outside and takes a breather. Punk tosses Darby into the corner, and Darby flies into the post and outside of the ring. So like he kind of went in between the turnbuckle and hit the post and went out. And then Punk just kind of beats on Darby from here, and Darby does start to fight back, but Punk stops him and locks in an abdominal stretch. And Darby goes quickly with a bunch of near falls and roll-ups to kind of get out of it, but he ends up going up to the top rope. Punk stops him and goes for a backdrop, but Darby ends up hitting a crossbody instead. Darby then rolls up Punk for a near fall, and Punk hits the GTS, and Darby ends up rolling to the outside, or I guess falling to the outside more than anything. Punk then hits a big knee and sets up for the GTS, but Darby fights out and hits a baseball dive to the outside, sorry. And then Darby hits a senton also after that. And then Darby goes for the coffin drop, but Punk moves, he sits up, and Darby answers by rolling him up for a near fall. Punk then runs at Darby. Darby does stop him. He goes for the Poison Rana, but Punk turns it into the GTS, and he gets the win. CM Punk defeats Darby Allin. And, I mean, I'm so happy to have Punk back, and it was such a good match. My Malteser scale, I gave this a 5 out of 5. It's absolutely perfect. I loved every second of it. And then after the match, Sting came out and shakes hands with Punk, and they go to help up Darby, but he says he can do it himself, and then they shake hands. He and Punk do. And then we get a singles match between QT Marshall and Paul White. No more BS. And Paul just takes control instantly. He takes out all of the factory members and just starts beating on QT. Chops on him on the chest, tosses him into the corner. But then QT does go for the hip. He knocks Paul down, and he goes for a pin, and is just tossed out of the ring. QT then goes for a diamond cutter, but Paul stops it and tosses QT away from him, and chops Solo, who was kind of getting involved. Hits the big punch, the formerly WMD, and a shoulder block on Camarado, and then choke slams QT all the way to hell for the win. Paul White defeats QT Marshall. My Malteser scale, I gave this a 3 out of 5. It's a solid match. While it was quick, it was definitely what we needed to kind of cool off after the last 2 matches we just had, or even 4 matches. It's really exactly what was called for before we headed to the main event. We then get Jon Moxley talking about Minoru Suzuki and the fight they're going to have, and Malachi Black talks about his fight with Dustin Rhodes this Wednesday as well. But finally, we get the AEW World Championship match. Kenny Omega defending against Christian Cage. And they immediately exchange shots, and Kenny takes it to the outside, but Cage chops him and tosses him into the barricade. Cage then goes to the top rope and hits a dive to the outside. And then Kenny sends Cage into the steps and pulls out a table as Don's distracting the ref, so Kenny can stomp on the table underneath, or above, I guess, Christian, sending the table into Christian. And then he's able to set up another one, but Cage fights out of the suplex that Kenny was going to deliver and takes it back into the ring. Kenny then hits a modified sling blade and locks in a headlock, and he takes control here and slams Cage onto the mat. Kenny then sets him up on the top rope and then dumps him to the outside, and hits a moonsault off of the barricade to the outside. He gets a near fall, rolling him back in the ring. Kenny then sends Cage into the corner and then hits a Yushigoroshi driver, and then goes to the top rope again, but is stopped by Cage, and he hits a Hurricane Rana off the top rope. They then exchange shots again, and Kenny goes for the one-winged angel, but Cage fights out and continues to beat on him. And then Cage goes for a submission. Kenny fights out, and then Cage answers by going for a spear. Kenny hits a V-trigger, and Cage answers with a DDT. Cage then sets up for the kill switch, but Kenny fights out and hits a V-trigger and multiple Snapdragon suplexes. Kenny then hits the V-trigger again, and Cage holds onto the ropes to not be pinned. So, Kenny was going to pull him in, but Cage held on. And then Kenny decides he's going to go for a suplex off the apron and get the one-winged angel. He goes for the one-winged angel, but Cage fights out and hits a spear through the table on the outside. That was a nice set of moves there for sure. Cage then spears Kenny in the back and front as well for a near fall, and then Cage goes for a frog splash, but Kenny gets the knees up. Kenny hits then multiple V-triggers and goes for a tiger driver, but Cage fights out and locks in a cloverleaf submission. This is when Don Callis calls out the Good Brothers, so Cage lets go. He takes out the Good Brothers really quickly. He hits a kill switch for a near fall. Callis then distracts Cage. He's quickly run off. Cage then goes up to the top rope with Kenny going for the kill switch. Kenny fights out by raking the eyes and hits the one-winged angel from the top rope for the win. Kenny Omega defeats Christian Cage to retain the AEW World Championship. Fantastic match, absolutely through and through. My Malteser scale, I gave this a 6 out of 5. It was absolutely perfect. I loved the show so much, and this match was just perfect. After the match, the Elite comes out to celebrate and beat down on Cage, and Jurassic Express comes out to make the save. They don't make the save. The Elite beats them down quickly. And then Kenny gets on the mic and says, no one's on his level, at least no one that is here. Everyone is either retired or already dead. The lights go out, and it's Adam Cole, baby. He makes his way into the ring. He's standing off with the Elite, and then he just super kicks Jungle Boy. And then they start celebrating. It looks like it was all a part of the plan. Adam Cole is part of the Elite again. And Kenny is going to try to send the show home after they talk and say, this was all planned out. And he's about to say good night, bang. Good night, smooch. I can't remember how he does it. I apologize. I haven't seen that in a long time. But before he can do it, Bryan Danielson makes his AEW debut. Not only did they get Adam Cole, not only did they get Ruby Soho, they got Bryan Danielson. Absolutely fantastic. He's then standing with Jurassic Express and Cage, and they beat down the Elite as Kenny and Adam flee out so they don't get beaten down. This is fantastic. I am so happy. For my overall, I gave it an 8 out of 5. And for the match of the night, I gave it the steel cage match. Because obviously, the segment of the night is the post-main event beatdown, as well as all of the debuts of the show. And the performer of the night is every single person on the card, but as well, the one and only Tony Khan. Unfortunately, that is all for this episode of Walking the Ropes Wrestling Review. Thank you all for dropping in. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notifications whenever we upload a video. And I'll see you in the next one.